Welcome to the Bag Maker's Workroom. I am Chris with Simply Classic, and today is Thursday, November 6th, 2025. Thank you so much for joining us live tonight. We go live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't join us live, you can watch the recording on YouTube at any time. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when I go live or post a video. So tonight is our first episode with the new format of our Bag Maker's Workroom. If you weren't here last week, I announced that we're changing things just a little bit because I miss sewing. I miss it. I mean, I just do. I feel like I haven't been able to sew as much as I wanted to this year. And so therefore, I got to sew this week. And thank you for that. I'm so excited about it. So we decided to keep our featured patterns on sale for 2 weeks now instead of one. So the featured pattern is the Eva, which was brand new last week. And so you have actually 2 weeks to buy it on sale. So it's $12.49. And we are going to continue next week with our, what I would call our regular episode with perfect pairings and Thursday thread and all that kind of fun stuff. But in the second week, the episode will be focused on actually making the featured bag. And of course, today is the Eva. So here's what we have planned for today. We're going to first talk about news and updates in the Simply Classic Scoop. Then I'll show you how I embroidered and constructed the large Eva. And that's what you see right here. Okay, I have a little travel embroidery on there. We'll feature our customers' bags in Artistry Avenue. And then finally, we'll give away some patterns for the Eva at the end. So before we get started, please take a second to click the thumbs up button. It really helps us reach more people on YouTube, and we all really appreciate it. So now, so Smiley Jen says, hello, everyone new to this group. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Jen. We think you're going to really enjoy the Bag Maker's Workroom. Again, tonight's kind of a new thing. We're going to sew a little bit tonight. I have a pre-recorded video, but afterwards, keep track of any questions you have, and I'll make sure I answer all your questions after the video plays. So Christine says, hello, good evening. I just love the live. So hello to everyone. So the only thing we really have to tell you about tonight, and we just want to mention this, is that we've had a few issues with people not receiving emails from our share@simplyclassic.net email. So that's the email address that we use for Bag Maker's Workroom. And a couple of people have said they didn't receive the pattern we sent after they won. So I'm not sure what's happening, but if you email us about a prize and you don't hear back, please follow up with us. We always try to respond within 1 business day. So if it's been longer than that, it probably means there was some kind of technical issue. Also, make sure that you check your spam folders. I do know that sometimes emails are just blocked by firewalls, and sometimes when we try to send things, it just never comes through. So technology, good and bad. But, if you ask for a pattern, or you want a pattern and you reach out and you don't hear from us, reach back out. You're not going to be bothering us, I promise. So speaking of winners, it's time to choose a winner for the Eva pattern. So every week we give away a pattern to one person watching live and one person who comments in the replay. So to enter, we ask you to tell us the project that you're most proud of is what we asked you to comment on last week. So this is of course, the Eva pattern was what you're going to win. This is open worldwide. So we have the people who entered here, and I'm going to go ahead and choose a name, and let's see what we have. So, Savvy Design, Sean. She said, you had to drop off the live for dinner with your nephew. He's traveling this week. So Sean, the Banda bag was your favorite. And so Sean was a part of our, I think it was a couple episodes or a couple classes ago, made the Banda bag. And I don't know if you remember, we actually featured her bag on the Bag Maker's Workroom because she had a happy accident. And I don't know if you remember the episode on happy accidents, but when she went to go cut her leather, she did something wrong, and so she didn't have enough leather to make the entire bag out of the pink that we sent her. So she looked in her stash. She found some brown that she had, and she ended up making the bag two-tone. So the handle was two-tone, the knots on the sides were two-tone. It ended up being absolutely gorgeous. So one of those happy accidents. And so congratulations, Sean, you have won an Eva bag. So make sure you reach out to us in the next 30 days to let us know that you've won. And just make sure to email share@simplyclassic.net, and we'll send you the Eva pattern. So we're going to be announcing 2 more winners later this in the episode. So make sure you stay tuned. So now is the fun part. Let's sew. I'm so excited. I got to sew this week. And this is where I actually got to sit down at the sewing machine and did some things. I actually had kind of a happy accident myself, and you'll see what happened. I kept all that in so you could see what I did. Of course, our featured bag is the brand new Eva bag, and the pattern includes 2 sizes, a small and a large. So I already made a tire tutorial for the small. Today, I wanted to show you what's different when you're making the large. The exterior's really made the same way. It's very similar. You have all inspired me to go out and get an embroidery pattern to do this travel embroidery. And you're going to see it a little bit closer up in the video in just a minute. But so many of you have done embroidered designs on the Evas. I've really loved them. So I went ahead and looked for one that I thought would do well and got my embroidery machine out. That's one of the things I haven't used in a while. So that was fun. And the main thing that I wanted to show you in this video is how to make the pockets on the inside. They're slightly different. So that's what we're going to go over. A little bit of embroidery, which we've never talked about embroidering on faux leather before. So it was kind of fun. I'm going to kind of walk you through that process. And then we're also going to talk about the pockets. So I recorded this a few days ago for you. We're going to watch the video, and then I'm going to answer any questions you may have. Also, please let me know, if you don't mind, how the audio sounds on this video. Of course, this is our first time doing this. If it's louder or quieter than the live audio, just let me know in the chat, and we'll make sure that we can adjust it next time if we need to. Okay, so let's take a look at making the large Eva. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is the embroidery design. And you know, you can embroider on faux leather, but you want to look for a design that isn't too busy. Just like we talked about in the past, you can definitely put too many holes in your faux leather or leather, and it will basically act like perforated paper. So when I looked for a design, I looked for something that was fairly open, fairly simple, and something that wouldn't cause too many holes or stitches. I put a couple of layers of some tearaway stabilizer in my hoop. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but I did find the center of the main part of my bag. Okay. I'm going to float this on top of the hoop. If I go ahead and snap this in, which I certainly could do, it's going to probably cause lines here that it might be hard to get out. So that's one reason why I'm floating it. Another thing is I've already stabilized this. So this is going to have its own stabilizer on it. I'm going to have, again, a little bit of tearaway. I'll take off, and then that will be it. So I'm just going to tape this down. Now, the embroidery machine that I have is a Brother 6 needle machine, a 6-stitch machine, or 6 needle machine. It is something that I don't use as often as I wish I could. Maybe that will change. I do like to embroider, but you know, sometimes life gets in the way. So all I'm doing is just kind of taping this down so it does not move. And then I'm going to stick this in my machine, make sure that that's centered, and go ahead and stitch. I'm not using any special needle, and I'm not using any special thread. I'm just using regular embroidery thread. So the design is done, and you can see it did an initial stitch all the way around, which means it put holes all in the front of the bag. So what I'm going to do is to see how noticeable these holes are. If they're noticeable, I'm just going to go ahead and with my regular black thread, I'm going to just do an outline here and stitch around and stitch in the same holes. It'll kind of frame it. So I'm going to take this apart. Let's see how it looks, and then I'll determine from there what I'm going to do to fix it. Okay, I can definitely see these holes. They are, I can see right here. So what I'm going to do to fix this, okay, we had an episode on happy accidents. I'm going to just go ahead and draw a line along the holes, and I'm just going to stitch. It'll just be like a little frame for it. And I'm just going to do this in my black bonded nylon thread. Make sure I get right on the holes. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and stitch a box right around that. So I'm just going to make sure I start in one of the holes. Okay, so here is the design. I feel like one line looks kind of, what's the right word? I don't know, it just kind of looks lonely. I feel like a second line is going to make it look a lot better. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and stitch one more line around. I'm going to stay about 1/8 of an inch away from this one. So my foot is actually a 1/4 inch foot, so I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch away. Make it easier for me to line up. I am going to mark a 1/4 inch away from this line because I wasn't sure where to end. I'm going to do the same thing on this other, each corner. I'm just going to mark 1/4 inch so I know exactly where to start and stop. All right. Okay, to me that looks a lot better, just having that second line of stitching. So I'm going to tie these threads off in the back and then continue constructing the main part of the bag. Now the main part of the bag is no different than the large and the small. It's exactly the same. One is just bigger than the other. What is different is the way that the interior pockets are put together. The accordion pocket is slightly different. So we will jump ahead. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the exterior. Then we'll jump ahead and I'll show you how to do the pockets, because that's the part that's different. Okay, I have my gusset done. I have obviously the embroidery part done. So I am ready to work on the pockets. And as I mentioned, this is slightly different. So I just want to go over how to do this again. Now, this pattern is written for adhesive lining, which we're using here in this bag. And I'm using 2 different colors. I'm going to use black for the part that goes against the main part of the bag. So basically I have my front and or back piece here and I'm using black against that. And then for the pockets themselves, I'm going to go ahead and use this cream color. So we have 2 pockets, one's bigger than the other. And again, we're doing the pockets for the large version right now. So I'm going to put the larger pocket aside for just a second, and I'm going to take the smaller pocket and I'm going to fold it in half, wrong sides together, so that the long edges meet. And the only reason why I'm doing this is because I want this crease here. It's going to help me when it's time to fold this pocket in half. So I'm going to turn this and just pull one of the long edges of the paper back, just a little bit. And I'm just going to go ahead and fold this up. And now I want to fold this up by a 1/2 inch. So I usually find it easiest to be on my cutting mat when I do this, because especially with the lighter colors I can see through. But if not, if you don't have that, you can just take a ruler and kind of set it aside. You can mark, but it's kind of hard to do that because obviously this is sticky. Let's see if we can maybe get that to work. If I just go ahead and lay this ruler on here and use maybe my silver marking pen to just draw a line. Yeah, I can see that line. Probably hard for you to see, but I can see it. So I'm going to go ahead and just fold this up to that 1 inch line. I'm going to start here in the middle and just fold this over. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that same thing on the other long side. Okay, and then just fold this up to that 1 inch line. So this is a 1/2 inch that I'm folding over. Okay, so from here I'm going to peel the rest of this paper off. And this is where creasing it ahead of time really helps. Okay, go ahead and peel the paper off, and then you want to go ahead and match these edges that you folded up. Now, this is kind of the tricky part. You don't want the middle of this to stick to itself if possible until you're ready. So go ahead and get these edges first, and then smooth the rest of this pocket out. Okay, so from here we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch both at the top and at the bottom edge of this pocket. Okay, so now we have our pocket. From here, take the base piece. So for me, it's going to be this black piece. And we're going to measure up from the bottom. I give you a measurement in the pattern. And you're going to line one edge up with the edge of the main part of the lining. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and put a couple of wonder clips in here to hold this. Well, I've got to get it straight first. Let me try that again. And we're going to baste this on. Now, when I say baste, what you're trying to do is just go ahead and stitch this on. You don't necessarily have to back stitch. We're going to stitch over this again when we put the whole entire bag together and when we put the accordion pocket on. Now from here, we want to go ahead and form our slots for our toiletries or whatever we're going to be using this bag for. So if you happen to have one of your shampoo bottles or hairspray bottles or whatever you're going to be using this for, you can go ahead and slide that in. I showed you how to do this last week and figure out exactly where you need to stitch. Now, let's say you want to make this into a sewing bag, then you're just going to figure out exactly how far in you need for, say, scissors or whatnot, and go ahead and stitch the pockets accordingly. So I'm going to estimate about what I think my shampoo and or hairspray bottles are. I'm going to make sure I stay the same distance from the bottom as I go across and stitch these little loops in place. And you can either wonder clip this. I'm just going to go ahead and hold this down and back stitch at the top, come down and back stitch at the bottom. Okay, once you have one done, you can go ahead and form the second. And you can make as many or as few of these as you want. I'm just going to make sure my distance is correct from the bottom, and then go ahead and stitch in place. And then I have one more I want to make. Now let's say that I have some left over. Maybe my third bottle, I don't need as much space as this entire thing. That's okay. I'm going to go ahead and just put a clip where I want to end. I'll stitch, and then I can cut this part off. Try to leave you enough space so that you can make as many of these loops as you wanted to, and as large as you wanted to. Okay, so now I'm done making my pockets, my loops. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this off, and this is just extra for this bag. Throw that out. Okay, so from here, everything is really about the same as the small. The only thing that is different so far is the width of this pocket is a little bit bigger, and the distance that we put the pocket onto this piece is a little bit larger, okay? So now we want to move on to the accordion pocket, and the accordion pocket is the larger of the two pieces. We're not going to fold the edge under because it's going to get stitched into the bottom of the bag. So all we're going to do is to fold this in half, get a good crease, and then we can go ahead and peel the paper off and start folding this down. And one thing, another way you could do this is you could peel some of the paper off. Go ahead and fold some of this down and then continue peeling. Whatever makes it easier to get these two pieces together. I always find it's easier to stand up for one. I've tried a couple different ways. I don't know that one is any easier or better than the other. To be honest with you, sometimes just pulling all the paper off is the best. And go ahead and match these edges up as best as possible. And they don't have to be perfect. And then I'm just going to go ahead and fold these down. If you do have a little bit of pleats in here, you could certainly take this apart and try to get them out. It's not crucial that you do. this one's gonna be an accordion pocket. And of course, with all of the little loops and accordions, you know, they kind of, and then of course you're stitching it all together. They're really not that noticeable if you have any. But I will go ahead and just try to get some of these out. There we go. Okay, now this is where it changes and it differs, the big versus the small. We're going to do a couple of different pleats in this pocket. So I actually give you some measurements in the pattern, and you are going to go ahead, and I like to use chalk for this. You're going to go ahead and measure and draw the lines on this pocket. Okay, so all of these measurements are in the pattern. And we're going to do that from both sides. Okay, so from here, we are going to fold wrong. It doesn't, if you have directional fabric or if you have fabric with the right and wrong side, you're going to fold wrong sides together. Obviously, we don't have that. So I'm just going to take and fold right on one of these lines. Go ahead and wonder clip. I'm going to fold on the second line and wonder clip. I am not going to fold on the line closest to the edge. Okay, and now we're going to stitch each one of these lines 1/8 of an inch from the folded edge. Okay, so here's what we have. We're now going to take the first fold closest to the edge and put it on the line. Okay, so we're just going to take that and fold it right up against the line, and I'm going to put a wonder clip at the top and at the bottom. We're going to take our second edge and we're going to repeat that. So I'm going to take it and fold it right up against top and bottom. Now, I actually was supposed to top stitch this pocket first, and I forgot to do that. So if you'd like to have that pocket top stitch, you can certainly do that. All right, we're going to go ahead and fold this to the line, and then one more time fold it. Once we do these folds, we want to make sure the pocket measures the same width as the main piece here. So you can either use a ruler and double check it, or you can just go ahead and fold these little edges down and make sure that this width is the same as your pocket. Okay? So I see mine is. I'm going to go ahead and wonder clip this in place right over our prior slot pockets that we did. I'm lining up the bottom. Okay. And you can certainly base these pleats in place first before you do this. I'm just going to go ahead and line all this up. Use my wonder clips. And of course, our main piece here is curved. This edge is not curved. You can go ahead and curve it now so that you know where to stitch, because we're going to base this pocket on. Okay, so I'm going to go around these 3 edges and base this pocket in place. Okay, so now we can go ahead and remove our wonder clips. And what this does is obviously gives us slots, but it also gives us a pocket here that we can fit other things in as well. And it's got 2 pleats, so we can fit a little bit more in there. So that's the main difference between the large and the small. The small has 1 pleat, the large has 2 pleats. So I'm going to continue with the bag and finish up by clipping the lining to the lining side. So basically right sides together. And I'm going to take the main part of the bag and wonder clip that to the main part of my completed bag here. So basically the main parts are right sides together and the linings are right sides together, and then I'll go ahead and stitch. Now, before you peel the paper off of this pocket, I'm going to go ahead and top stitch. Now on my front, I decided I wanted to do 2 lines of top stitching since I did 2 rows around my travel. So I'm going to do the same thing on the back. I'm just going to kind of pull this down and do 2 lines of top stitching. I'm doing one at 1/8 of an inch and one at 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and once that is complete, you can go ahead and peel the backing off the paper and stick this together, and then go ahead and complete the bag just like you did this small. Okay, we're going to go to the overhead and take a little bit closer look at the bag. A lot of you asked some great questions, so as soon as we're done looking at it, we're going to answer your questions. So let's go to the overhead first. So here is the completed bag. Let me put it this way so you can see it. Our camera zoomed in quite a bit. So it Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry about that.
We're back.
Okay, we're back. All right. Sorry about that. Somehow we lost our audio. So I said when we first came back that we're going to take a look at the bag and the overhead, and then you had a lot of excellent questions. So we're going to go and answer your questions in just a second. So first thing is embroidery. You know, when you are embroidering, you're putting holes in your faux or holes in your leather. You can embroider leather as well. But just like we always talk about, the more holes you put in it, the more you're perforating the product, and you certainly don't want it to rip on you. So when I looked for a pattern, I just made sure that this embroidery pattern was fairly simple and didn't have a lot of stitches in it. And that's reason why I chose this one. Okay. And then on the inside, I do want to show you the pockets completed because we didn't actually have the bag completed in the video. So you can see here all of the different pockets. I did both sides the same. So now I've got big accordion pockets I can fit things in, as well as pockets for shampoo bottles. Now, a lot of you have mentioned that you'll be using this to take to sewing retreats, and you're going to customize it for your scissors and all your sewing tools, which I think is a fantastic thing. And it is it's really a fairly quick sew, and I just love what you have all done with this. So we're going to come to the front camera, and we're going to take a look at some of the questions you had, because you had excellent questions, and this is why we're doing this. So thank you. Okay, first question. DJCFLA says, do you have to use the adhesive lining? So the answer to that is no, you don't have to. The pattern is written for adhesive lining. However, if you want to use cotton or anything like that, waterproof canvas would be another excellent option. What you'll have to do is, in the places where I peel the backing off the paper and adhere it down, you're just going to have to baste. So once you get the gusset together, you just have to go ahead and baste around the gusset. Once you get the front piece here and the lining piece, you'll just have to baste around that before you continue with the construction of the bag. So it's perfectly fine to do that. That's a great question. So Felicia says, does the self-adhesive lining start gumming up the needle? So you saw in the video, I was using my Bernette 08. I never had a problem with it gumming up the needle. You know, it's interesting. It's sticky and it loves to stick to itself. But when you stick it to faux leather or, you know, even with the needle, it's not that sticky. It's really interesting how it works. But I have not had a problem with it. And I have I had a 9014 leather needle in. It was not one of those no stick ones. It was just a regular needle. And then the thread I used was the Tex 45 that we have in black. So Sandra Punt, 1981, says, I'm kind of scared to use it. It will be stuck to itself and I'll waste it. So it can be tricky. I am going to say that once it sticks to itself, it's pretty stuck. It just takes a little bit of practice with these pockets, getting them together. It is really great to use on the back of faux leather, like for wallet linings and for like the Sorella, because you're just smaller pieces. Obviously, the larger your piece gets, the maybe more difficult it is when you're trying to get it stuck to where you want it to stick to, because it can certainly grab something else. So Deborah asks, is the adhesive lining on sale this week? So it is not on sale this week, but give us just a little bit of time. We're going to have a big Black Friday sale, and it will probably start on Thanksgiving night or Thanksgiving Day and probably go through the weekend. So stay tuned for that, and I'm sure that everything will be on sale at that time. And then Jane Jarvis says, could you use spray adhesive? Yes, you could. Like a 505 spray or something like that would be fine. Or again, you could just go ahead and baste it, and that would certainly be okay as well. You know, if you're quilting, so the original pattern, instead of doing embroidery here, is quilted like this one here. And so I did use some 505 spray on the back of that to adhere the foam to the faux leather so I could quilt it. So that is a fantastic way to use that. I will say that if you do that, make sure you spray your foam, not your faux. Okay, so spray the foam and then take the foam and put it on the back of the adhesive. And then Liz Wilson says, where did you get your embroidery? So I got it on Etsy. And it was a shop on Etsy that I think I just literally went onto Etsy and Googled travel designs. And that was one of the ones that came up. There was a lot of them. But again, a lot of them had, tons of stitches. And I was afraid it was just going to perforate that faux leather too much. I mentioned to you in the video, no special needle when you embroider on faux leather, and just regular embroidery thread's fine because embroidery thread's polyester, so it works great with the faux. And then Zena says, where can I get one of those green seam guides from? So that is from Purple Hobbies. If you go to our resource page on our website, and we may have linked this below too, there is a promo code. If you use the code Simply Classic, you get 15% off. And the great thing about those guides is there's the main guide has got one bar, okay? And then you have all these other little guides that you can take out and put in, and then different shapes and they're different sizes. And it's really a great tool. As you saw, it screws right to the Bernette, and so you don't have to stick it down. I really like it and definitely recommend that you get it, especially when you're trying to do something like I used it for the handles to make sure I stayed an eighth of an inch away. Fantastic little tool. All right, so excellent questions. We appreciate you asking them, and that's what we're here for. And that's why I am really glad we have changed this format a little bit so that we could do some sewing and you can ask these questions. So now it's time for Artistry Avenue, and this is where we feature bags made by you, our customers. This is actually my very favorite segment of the episode. Every week, we choose 3 bags that we're posting in the Simply Classic bag making community on Facebook or email to share@simplyclassic.net. If we feature your bag, you have 30 days to email share@simplyclassic.net to let us know which pattern you'd like. So now let's take a look at this week's artists. Cheryl made 3 Evas already. She made the one on the left using materials in her subscription box. So she obviously got the navy and the cream. And I love how she embroidered this and how she quilted this. I think she actually quilted it. Love the hearts. Love the design around them. I mean, they're just fantastic. I knew when I was designing this pattern that you would take this and run with it. And you guys have not disappointed me. You have done so well with these Evas. I absolutely love them. And then in addition, she made a set that matches her luggage. And isn't that cool? I think it's fantastic. The Eva is really a great bag. You know, if you think about Christmas gifts, to make a set of Evas for somebody for Christmas, that'd be great. So Lisa made this Eva, and she also used the textured navy for the gusset and the handles. And for the front and back, she ended up going to her scrap pile, and she found this navy and silver blend that she had, and she went ahead and pieced it and just made that for the front and the back. And I've seen this in person. This is really a beautiful bag. It really, that navy silver croc with that texture really looks great. So excellent job, Lisa. And she ended up using Chicago screws instead of rivets too. You know, that's one thing I want to mention. Chicago screws is a really great alternative to rivets. They're actually, in my opinion, a lot easier to use. You can buy them, you know, in large quantities for not that much money, and they're definitely worth it. And you can get different kinds too. Like you see hers here look flat. They're very pretty. So then Michelle made this set of floral Evas with piping. And she did say that if she made them again, she probably would not add the piping because it made the seams a little bit thick. It really looks great though. And she's in Australia, and it's springtime in Australia. So it's really perfect. Floral is perfect for spring. Excellent job, Michelle. So thank you to our featured artists for sharing your amazing makes. You are very talented. Don't forget to email share@simplyclassic.net within 30 days and let us know which PDF pattern you'd like. So finally, we are going to give away 2 PDF patterns for the Eva. We'll choose 1 live stream winner from the chat and 1 replay winner from the comments. So if you're watching live on Thursday, here's how to enter. All you need to do is type the word stitch in the chat. Please only enter the keyword one time, and we will have the computer pick a winner while we do our Q&A. And this is open worldwide. If you're watching the replay, you can also enter to win. Just leave a comment that includes two things. It's going to be your first name and what you're planning to carry in your EVA, because I think there's a lot of great ideas out there that you have. So you have until next Wednesday to enter, and I'll randomly choose a winner on next week's episode. So let's see. I'm not sure if we have any questions. I know we already answered a lot of them, but Chris Kramer did ask a question on last week's video. She said, I'm going to Italy in the spring, and do you have any leather buying tips? I plan on visiting Rome and Florence. When we went, we only went to Florence, and we, yeah, I mean, it's just amazing over there. As far as buying leather, you know, we went to more of the warehouses and the suppliers. What I suggest you do is don't be intimidated to go into a lot of the shops that have leather bags. Those people are so fantastic. They're willing to talk to you, even if they can only, I had a whole conversation with this one man. He spoke Italian, I spoke English. Neither one of us understood a word the other said, but yet we understood every word each other said. It was really a very interesting conversation. By the end, he was kissing me and hugging me, and he was so funny. But anyway, don't be intimidated. Go into these shops, look at the bags, see how they're made, take pictures, ask questions. They're really willing to share their knowledge, and I say take advantage of every single thing you can. I can't really give you any advice on Rome. I'm not sure how much leather products there are there. Florence is more of the leather capital. So just, you know, all the little shops, you know, there's not any big leather stores over there necessarily. They're all just like these tiny little places. So take advantage, go in, and I wish I was joining you. Italy is fantastic. So let's see if we have a winner. So yes, we do. Is it Nesyelis 9807? Congratulations, you have won a PDF copy of the EVA. So make sure you email share@simplyclassic.net. If you can do it within the next 24 hours to let us know you've won, we'll go ahead and get your EVA right away. So thank you so much for joining me for the Bag Makers Workroom, and make sure you join us next Thursday, November 13th at 7 p.m. Our featured pattern will be the Bircham crossbody. Don't forget to submit your Simply Classic makes by posting in the Facebook group or emailing share@simplyclassic.net. Please remember to click the thumbs up button on your way out. And until next time, everybody, happy sewing.